Hey guys, how's it going? It's Target here. Welcome back to another episode of Target Talks. Or welcome, not welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Target Talks. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. And you know what? I've got an absolutely huge surge of questions from people now. So it's nice because I'm getting a lot of diversity, a lot of different questions, mostly hockey related. I'd like to see some more personal stuff in there. Not necessarily because I want to brag about myself more, but because hockey talk can kind of sound monotonous, you know. Part of Target Talks was to kind of find out more about who I am so that you guys can feel more connected to me, and so I can feel more connected to you guys by knowing that you guys know that information. And I'm more than willing to talk hockey. I love talking shop, so we will do that, absolutely. But you know what? You can turn on TSN and Sportsnet and all that stuff as well and find that same stuff. You know, that's just my thought anyway. But having said that, before we get into things, don't forget, submitting questions on Twitter, you get first dibs on the questions. I'll answer yours first, and then we'll do the questions on YouTube. If you want to do questions on both, by all means, but keep in mind I will only answer one question for you from each from each thing. So Twitter and then YouTube. So if you want to ask two questions, ask one on YouTube, ask one on Twitter, and then that way you know you're going to get both in there. So I have like 30 questions to go through. I'm not going to get them done in this video. It's probably going to be a two-parter because I'd have to spend about a minute per question, less than a minute per question, and it'd be going too quick. Some of these are, you know, quicker, but we'll see how things go. Anyway. So, let's start with the Twitter questions, because I said I'd do them first. So, the first one starts out from @BlackoutDaniel. He says, do you think Shanahan will turn the Leafs in the right direction, or add more losing seasons? Okay, first off, Leafs fans don't understand what a losing season is until you've been in the Edmonton Oilers' shoes. The Edmonton Oilers fans' shoes. That's losing seasons. I think Shanahan's going to do good things for the Leafs. Absolutely. What? We don't know. Shanahan's never been in a role like this before. You know, ever since he retired, he basically just stepped over into the disciplinary action for the NHL, and now he's in a general manager role. You know, and it's going to be different for him. There's no doubt about it. We're going to be really testing him on something he's never done, and so I don't know. Sorry, he's not. Sorry, he's an ice hockey executive. No, sorry, I spoke wrong when I said general manager. But you know, it's his first. He's gonna have a lot of influence on the team either way. But I think he can only do good things for the Leafs. The Leafs aren't that far off from making the playoffs. Like they made him. They didn't make him this year, but they made him the year before. The Leafs are. I think they're just a couple pieces away. I think, and the funny thing is, the only thing that I think he needs to go out there and aggressively find is a goalie. That's the only thing I could see him going out there and trying to find is a goalie. But who knows? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he wants to. Maybe he wants to influence the team to go after something else. But anyway, so the only thing I'm actually interested in seeing how Shanahan reacts is by. Sorry, I'm just really stumped right now. For God's sake, I can't think. I want to see his reaction to when one of his players gets suspended and see if he agrees with the league at all. That'd be hilarious. Anyway, next question by @Who'sFred. Do you think the Penguins should move in net, as in make a trade, I'm assuming? And do you think they need to bring in another big name? Okay. Do I think they need to make a trade, like a goalie trade? Personally, I don't think so. I think Fleury had a great year this year. Fantastic year for the Penguins. Yeah, sure, the debate came up in the playoffs again. But, at the same time, I don't think you can necessarily say that Fleury was the cause that the Penguins are out before, you know, the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think that you could pin that on Fleury. Look at Sidney Crosby. He did not show up for the playoffs this year. He's an elite star. He's the only player that posted the numbers like he did this year. He was head and shoulders above everybody else. You expect him to be head and shoulders above everybody else in the playoffs as well. Now, playoffs is a completely different bag of tricks. It's a completely different game. But you still expect Crosby to produce. No, I don't think the Penguins should move in net. I think they should stick with Fleury. I think that their main focus should be improving defensively as a team. You should be. I mean, their offense aren't bad. They're not bad defensively, but their defense, they don't really have any great two-way players. I mean, the player they hang their hat on for defense is Chris Letang, and I'll tell you right now, Chris Letang is such a one-dimensional player. He does not play defense at all. He's terrible. He's all about the offense. I wouldn't want Chris Letang on my team. That's the way I feel about him, okay? I mean, if I traded him for, you know, some crap player, maybe, but then he's a liability, and you have to shelter his minutes all the time. So I think they need to increase their defensive aspect of their team. And he said also, do you think they need to bring in another big name? You mean offensively big name? Or just go after a big name? I guess so. The funny thing is, almost every year we go to free agency, and the big people that we always talk about signing players are the Detroit Red Wings. I think the Detroit Red Wings come in almost every single conversation. But the one team that's considered elite that pretty much no free agents seem to sign with, like top free agents, is the Pittsburgh Penguins. And you know why that is? Because they know that they're not going to be a star in that team. You're going up with Sidney Crosby and Malkin. You're never going to lead that team. Some players want to lead that team, especially big names. They want to step in and lead a team, but they know they've already got leaders in Pittsburgh. You know, they're just going to be a complementary piece. They are not a focal point. A player wants to step in and be a focal point, wants to play the game that they want to play. That's how elite stars get born, is by playing their game. And, you know, so like, let's say, for example, Marian Gaborik. If the Penguins went after Marian Gaborik, who is a free agent this year, if he isn't re-signed by Los Angeles, Marian Gaborik, I almost said Hossa. Marian Gaborik would be a nice option. But the problem is, if you're Marian Gaborik, do you want to go and play with Sidney Crosby? Maybe. If I would, but maybe not him. He might be one of those guys that just really wants to be the elite star on a team. Because even when he walks into Los Angeles, Marian Gaborik is in a league of his own. He's a completely different type of player than what Los Angeles currently has. You know? I mean, they've got big, tough, brute guys. And then they add Marian Gaborik, who's 6 feet, like 185 pounds, soaking wet, sniper, who can light the lamp. He stands out. And that's why they got Gaborik. And that's why Gaborik fits well in Los Angeles. Even in New York. Bigger guys. No big elite stars, really. I mean, they had Rick Nash there. But he didn't play with Rick Nash. Who else? I mean, they had Ryan Callahan. But, like, really, again, New York was more of a grinded-out type team. You know, low-end playmaking and grinding-it-out team. And grind-out seems to make it to the playoffs a little bit further. But snipers are definitely useful. So, I think that they don't need to bring in another big name. If they can, then by all means go for it. But the lure of Pittsburgh does not seem to be as high as the lure of Detroit, where people like to go and play. So we'll see how things go when it comes to free agency. But if they sign a big name or they trade for one, I wouldn't trade for a big name. There's no way. Anyway, moving on. At Jesse 11,000 PS3 says, do you think that Chicago needs an elite sniper in their lineup? And is it time to consider Crawford as elite? So the first question, do you think that Chicago needs an elite sniper in their lineup? Does Chicago have problems scoring goals? Really? No, I don't think so. Does Chicago need an elite sniper in their lineup? I don't think so. I think that they've got enough players that are able to put pucks in the back of the net, that you do not need that guy that puts up 50 goals a year. You've got Marian Hossa, you got Patrick Sharp, you got Jonathan Toews, and you got Patrick Kane. That's enough. That is more than enough. Now, if they were to move one of those guys in favor of a sniper, a top guy, you would move either Patrick Sharp or Marian Hossa. Plain and simple. Where would some guy, like you might be able to move a Patrick Sharp to Tampa Bay along with a first-round pick for Jonathan Drouin. You know, that might be possible. Or, you know, just Marian Hossa Patrick Sharp for Jonathan Drouin, knowing that eventually Jonathan Drouin will be a top-line sniper. But you don't even know if a kid like that's going to translate well to the NHL. It's completely different. This is not NHL 14, whether you like it or not. So I don't think they need to add an elite sniper. I think that they've got goal scoring by committee, which is the best way to do it, because if one goes down, you've still got a number that can produce. You know, if Alexander Ovechkin gets hurt, the Capitals aren't scoring that month. You know what I mean? So I like the way that Chicago is built. They're probably one of my favorite teams out there in terms of the way they've assembled their players and they put together the team. So I think that they're set. Is it time to consider Crawford as elite? Crawford's played phenomenally in these playoffs. Is he elite? I don't think so. In my mind, there are 2 elite goalies in this entire league. Maybe 3. There's a fringe third. All right, and that's going to be a question later on, so I'll get to it later. Is it time to consider Crawford elite? No, but I think it's time to consider Crawford a star. We'll call him a star. Okay, not a superstar, but Crawford's definitely a star. At Gordon HWC1 asks, what is your favorite game of all time? Favorite game? Like video game? You know what? Well, the NHL games have always been my favorite for sure. But I think the one game that I was most passionately into for a short period of time, just all in, you know, balls to the wall, was Guitar Hero. I love Guitar Hero. I was really good at it too. So it was fun to play it, and I still every now and then pick up that crappy plastic guitar and rip a couple songs on the Xbox. I mean, it's a great game, and it really took the entire world by storm. Really, it was a huge cultural phenomenon, or fad, or whatever you want to call it, but it was huge. It was absolutely huge. I remember going to the bar, and they had Guitar Hero competitions. Guitar Hero competitions. Now you would never see that. It's died off. And before that, you know, when it happened, you're like, this seems ridiculous. But there was enough demand. There was enough demand, and people wanted to play the game. So it was fantastic. And you know what? I'm not going to lie. I nerded out and went to a couple competitions at the bars. I think I placed like second in a couple of them. Never won, because they always made you play like Through the Fire and Flames, and I could never do that one. But it was a big game, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And you know what? We spent I think the most important part about it was it got people together, especially when they came out with like the later Guitar Heroes, where you could add the vocals and the drums, and then somebody on bass and guitar. It really made it a group thing. You know, you all hung out and you had beers and you played Guitar Hero. It was fun. It was like because it was Guitar Hero, it didn't really feel like karaoke. You know, you had other people engaged versus, you know, like other people are center attention. Versus when you do it by yourself, like when you're doing karaoke, you're center of attention by yourself, and some people don't like that, and they're not comfortable with that. I would much rather play and sing with Guitar Hero than I would do karaoke, which is weird. It's just a mind thing. So Guitar Hero would probably be my most involved game, but definitely NHL is my favorite. So just to kind of give you a sample of the kind of stuff I like. At CCR2451, man after my own heart. I love CCR, if that's what you named your name after. What do you think about Minnesota? And do you think Molson will stay? And then he also says, will Vanek still come if money isn't a factor? And about the tenders. About the tenders? Are you talking about like Minnesota's tenders? Okay. Okay. Anyway. It's a tough one. Minnesota and Molson. Matt Molson landed on their lap, and you know what? He's done okay. I wouldn't go and say that Matt Molson is the be-all, end-all. I think they could do better. And the one thing that I have a problem with Minnesota is their gameplay. And I'm sorry for you, CCR, about to say this, but Minnesota plays a terrible game. It's way too defensive-ended for some snipers. And I think that any real sniper that you send there is not going to produce at the level they would elsewhere. It's just the way it works. In terms of Vanek going to Minnesota, I said he might stay in Montreal. But his salary cap is really high, thanks to Kevin Lowe. It's like $7 million. Because Kevin Lowe offered him an offer sheet, and Buffalo matched it. I mean, and the fact of the matter is, I don't think that Minnesota even needs him. Since Vanek left, I mean, they were averaging over 2.6 goals per game in the playoffs, which is not bad. Versus, I think the year before they had just over 1. It was so bad. It was absolutely horrible. So I don't think they need it. And the thing was, they've got a bright future of snipers. You know, they've got Mikhail Granlund, Charlie Coyle even. Charlie Coyle's a bit of a power forward, but that's okay. They've got Nino Niederreiter too. I mean, those are guys that are, you know, 20-goal scorers. They're fantastic. They can be 20-goal scorers, I mean. The future is bright, and they're all really young. They're all in their early 20s, so even better. But Vanek's stock, it's dropped too, so that's part of the reason why I don't see him coming. I mean, obviously, you know what? He's been great in Montreal, but he's been up and down. That's why I think he'll probably stay there, but he's not going to be making $7 million. So, just a thing. Anyway, next question. Where were we? Oh, and the tenders, you said. The tenders. What about them? You need to be more specific. What do you mean about the tenders? It just says and about the tenders, and it wasn't question mark, so I don't know. You might have to address that in another question. At Leva 2000, can you consider doing a fantasy draft? I'm assuming you're meaning for be a GM. I can definitely consider it if that's what you guys want to do. The only problem I find with a fantasy draft is you just need to go into the mindset that you're going to be a rebuilding club, all right? And then you draft one elite star, young elite star, still progressing, or you can get an old one that's almost done. Hold on, water. Pardon me. And then what you do is you just draft a bunch of high-ranked prospects. You get Seth Jones, you get Jonathan Druin, Nikita Kucherov. You get all those guys. It's kind of boring, I find. But if you guys want me to do it, then we'll do it. But please put a comment, you know, down below in this or in the BGM ones and let me know that you want to do a fantasy draft, okay? So we'll consider it. At Vikes Bowl 53, if you could ref any rivalry game in the NHL and why, and what do you think Edmonton should draft? A forward, defense, or goalie? Okay. If I could ref any rivalry game in the NHL, I think that Montreal-Boston would probably be the one. I think Montreal and Boston's rivalry is so intense, just not necessarily historically, but just definitely recently. Like they've faced off a lot, and the intensity between those two teams is so potent. It makes for so much excitement. I mean, I wouldn't even need to ref one. I just could be there. Just being at a game between those two teams would be just amazing. The atmosphere would be incredible. They're close enough where the fans make the trip to and from, so it definitely adds that extra dynamic that you wouldn't necessarily have with some other rivalries. I mean, the Edmonton-Calgary rivalry is great, but there's no stock in it anymore. No one makes the playoffs. You know, versus Boston-Montreal, they're in the playoffs. I mean, they just played each other. So it makes it very exciting when two teams that have a rivalry play in the playoffs together. It just adds that much more to the dynamic. And I really enjoyed watching those games, and I really enjoy that rivalry. So that would be the one. And what do you think Edmonton should draft? Forward, defense, or goalie? Jeez Louise. Well, I know the answer here. The Edmonton Oilers should draft a defender. For a couple reasons. One, they need it. However, I think they'll end up drafting a forward. The fact of the matter is, the Florida Panthers have the top pick. It looks like they're going to retain it. And they're going to take Aaron Ekblad. Bam. Gone. However, if Aaron Ekblad doesn't go, and it's available to Edmonton, let's just say, there's the difference between Aaron Ekblad and, let's say, Leon Draisaitl, the Oilers will take Ekblad. Hands down. Now, who do I think the Oilers will actually take? Well, I think that Florida is definitely taking Aaron Ekblad. And then I think that the... oh, for God's sake, who has the second pick now? I can never remember anymore. You guys are all yelling at it right now. I always forget who has the second pick, because I only really pay attention to myself. Let's just take a quick look, and then that way I can say it. That way I know who it is. Here we go. Buffalo, that's right. So Florida's going to take take Ekblad, and then I think that the Sabres are going to end up snagging. They're going to end up snagging Sam Bennett. That's who I feel that they'll add. I think that they like him. He's a gritty young player. And then the Edmonton Oilers have the choice between Reinhart and Draisaitl. That's what it comes down to. There's no other defenseman really in that top section. And if I were the Oilers, you take Reinhart. It doesn't matter how big Draisaitl is. You take Reinhart because of his skill. All right? You can add size. It's not like Draisaitl is going to make an impact anyway. Reinhart is the one you would take at that point if he drops that low. Now, defense do have a habit of dropping. All right? So there is a possibility of him falling down the list. But he won't fall further than third. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, let's see. Let me just read the next question really quickly. It's kind of tied in, so I'll do this one before I wrap it up. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do as many as I would have liked. Do you think Edmonton will trade their first-round pick at the draft? This is from @RotarySwag. And for who, if you think they will trade it? Do I think the Edmonton Oilers will trade their first-round draft pick? If you're talking about trading up, no. They're not going to trade up. If they were to trade it away, which is, for me, would be a possibility, the Oilers would need to get back a defenseman. Your top pairing defenseman. I just feel like that's what they would do. And they'd have to package it with something else. And you might have to give up a future pick as well. It's the nature of it. For who do I've always been... You're saying, who do I think I'll trade with? I'd love to trade with the Nashville Predators. I'll tell you right now, Nashville has the 11th pick in the draft. And for them, who, you know, have elite talent in the system, and they got Seth Jones, for God's sake, they have a defenseman, you might just be able to pry Shea Weber out of the hands of Nashville Predators, and it would require that first-round pick. It would definitely require a top defensive prospect, and it might even require a top forward prospect as well. Those three players. So, I mean, it would be nice. It's nice to dream. It's nice to dream, but I don't think anything's going to happen. I think the Oilers are going to take the pick, and they're either going to take Sam Reinhart, Aaron Ekblad, or Leon Draisaitl, depending on who's available. So, and when I say the only time they take Leon Draisaitl is if Reinhart's gone and Bennett's all that remains. That's the only way they take Draisaitl. So, anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap that up there. Keep submitting your questions. I'm going to get through the list that I have currently, and then we will get on to the new ones. So, I mean, there's going to be, I mean, how many did I get through in this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 questions, and I have 30. Man, oh man, it's like 3 episodes worth. Oh, we'll see what we can do. All right, guys. So I'll leave it at that. Until next time, I'm Target Audience, and I'll catch you guys out on the ice, the pitch, and the battlefield. Have a good one.